All right, listen, I'm going to get underway, and I know there's a note that'll be brought to me as we start. This morning, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, spoke at the Major Economies Forum convened by U.S. President Joe Biden. Mr. Guterres told the participants that the fight against climate change will only succeed if everyone in the room comes together to promote more ambition, more cooperation, and more credibility. The world demands that you, as the leading economies of the world, take an immediate action to lead us towards a sustainable and resilient future. There's a high risk of failure of COP26, the Secretary General added, warning that everyone must assume their responsibilities, be more ambitious on finance, adaptation, and mitigation. In his remarks, he also referred to the newly released synthesis report by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, which says that we need a 45% cut in emissions by 2030 to reach carbon neutrality by 2050. However, the data shows that we're on a track for an increase of 16% in emissions in 2030 compared to 2010 levels. This puts us on a catastrophic pathway to 2.7 degrees Celsius of heating. In a statement issued this morning, the Secretary General said that before COP26, all nations should submit a more ambitious, nationally determined contributions and ask developed nations once more to finally deliver on the $100 billion commitment promised over a decade ago in support to developing countries. And just as a reminder that on Monday at 9 a.m., the Secretary General and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, Boris Johnson, will hold an informal climate leaders roundtable on climate action. The roundtable will address the gap that remains on climate actions urgently needed from national governments, especially the G20, on mitigation, finance, and adaptation. We do expect a stakeout afterwards with the Secretary General and the Prime Minister right after the event. That should be around 11:30. We do not expect to have a noon briefing that day. We do, however, may have Filippo Grandi early afternoon here, but that's yet to be confirmed. Also on Monday morning, there will be, before the 9 a.m. and also concurrently, there will be an SDG moment in the General Assembly, which will include James's favorite band, BTS. So, and related to the to the SDGs, the Secretary General appointed 4 new Sustainable Development Goals advocates: Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi, STEM activist Valentina Munoz, Microsoft President Brad Smith, and K-pop superstars Blackpink, who are an all-girls K-pop band. The SDG advocate The SDG advocates use their spheres of influence to reach new constituencies to keep the promise of the Sustainable Development Goals for people and for the planet. Together, they will take on climate change to work to bridge the education digital divide and close the gap on gender equality, as well as working to promote and protect the rights of children. This morning, also via pre-recorded video message, the Secretary General spoke to the summit of the councils of heads of states of the Shanghai Cooperation Council, which was held in Dushanbe in Tajikistan. He said that the troubling developments in Afghanistan are causing profound political, economic, security, and humanitarian challenges. The Secretary General said it is clear that the Afghan people want extreme poverty to be eradicated, jobs to become available, health and education services to be restored, and their lives and basic rights and freedoms to be protected. They want their country free of insecurity and terror. The United Nations is committed to deliver for the Afghan people, the Secretary General stressed. And on a related note, this morning you will see in the Security Council unanimously voted to extend the mandate of the UN Assistance Mission in Afghanistan for another 6 months until March 17th, 2022. The Security Council also held consultations on Somalia. The Secretary General's Special Representative James Swan briefed Council members. On that note, as Somalis mark the 1-year anniversary of the 17th September Agreement, We, the United Nations, and our international partners said today they're increasingly alarmed that the escalating dispute between the president and the prime minister will undermine Somalia's stability and derail the electoral process. We urge the president and the prime minister to resolve their differences immediately and avoid further unhelpful exchanges of public statements and personnel announcements, refrain from any action that could destabilize the security situation, and refocus on concluding the overdue elections without further delay. And on Yemen, our special envoy for Yemen, Hans Grunberg, concluded his visit to Riyadh, where he met with Yemeni President Hadi, the Vice President Mohsen, the Speaker of the Parliament, Sultan al-Barakani, the Prime Minister, Abdul Malik, and the Foreign Minister, Ahmed bin Mubarak. During his meetings with President Hadi, Mr. Grunberg underlined his intention to listen to the parties to engage in serious, sustained discussions on the way forward towards an inclusive, comprehensive political settlement that meets the aspirations of the Yemeni people. Mr. Grunberg highlighted that a serious commitment by all parties to engage in good faith is a necessary first step in making progress on the UN's peace efforts. Mr. Grunberg also exchanged views with representatives of political parties on the ways to reinvigorate the political process. The Special Envoy also met with the Secretary General of the Gulf Cooperation Council, Naif al-Hajraf, Saudi officials, and the ambassadors to Yemen from the P5 countries. In all his engagements, he welcomed the clear engagement to actively support his mission and the willingness to work together to support a Yemeni-led political process. Today, the UN received a donation of 300,000 doses of the COVID vaccine from the government of China. The vaccine, manufactured by Sinopharm, was granted WHO emergency use listing earlier this year and will be distributed to UN personnel and peacekeepers through the UN system-wide COVID vaccination program. The COVID vaccination program delivers vaccines to locations where access to vaccines is not possible through national vaccination programs. The donation includes 18-month shelf life of the vaccine, will provide the continuation of the program and support the UN's efforts to reach all UN personnel, peacekeepers, and implementing partners who have stayed to deliver on our critical mandates throughout this pandemic. The donations come at a very important time following exhaustion of the vaccine stocks donated by the government of India in March of this year. On more COVID updates from Malaysia, where our resident coordinator Karima Al-Khoury and her team continues to support the country's participation in the COVAX facility and the wider vaccination scheme to reach undocumented people, refugees, and asylum seekers. The World Health Organization, UNICEF, have supported the vaccine rollout, procurement, and logistics. To date, Malaysia has received close to 1.4 million doses of vaccines through COVAX. As of today, nearly 93% of adult population have been vaccinated with at least one dose, and nearly 77% have been fully vaccinated. WHO, the International Organization for Migration, UNHCR, are working closely with health authorities and NGOs to coordinate and fund vaccinations of vulnerable and hard-to-reach people. WHO has procured medical equipment and supplies for patients. UNICEF delivered oxygen concentrators, oxygen masks, to 400 oxygen concentrators, 36,000 oxygen masks to 2 hospitals in one of the most impacted regions. UNHCR, IOM are also supporting the vaccination of hundreds of refugees and migrants. And from Latin America and the Caribbean, our UN teams tell us that vaccines from COVAX arrived in Jamaica, Guatemala, Panama, and Peru. And our teams are also working across the region to address the pandemic. Today is, on a medical note, World Patient Safety Day. This year, day is dedicated to the need to prioritize and address safety in maternal and newborn care, particularly around the time of childbirth when most harms occur. A statement from WHO is online. And tomorrow, an important day, it is International Equal Pay Day. In his message, the Secretary General said that pushing care work out of the formal economy into home, the COVID-19 pandemic has aggravated the gender pay gap. He points out that despite equal pay laws, women earn an average of just 80 cents for every dollar men earn for work of equal value, adding that this figure is even less for women of color and those with children. The Secretary General said that addressing the COVID-19 pandemic offers a generational opportunity to write new social contract that upholds women's human rights, including the right to equal pay. He stresses that this is a matter of justice and a responsibility for us all. Lastly, on an artistic note, if you walk by the North Lawn this week, you may have noticed an artist and his team busy spraying paint on the grass. The result is a giant land painting by the artist Stéphane, and will be inaugurated tomorrow at 11 o'clock by the Secretary General, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland, Ignacio Cassis, and the artwork is a gift from the Switzerland to mark the 75th anniversary of the UN and the launch of the Common Agenda report. This is not his first project on the UN grounds. Stéphane has done similar ephemeral work in front of the Palais des Nations in Geneva in June of last year, and also a reminder of the inauguration of the photo exhibit linked to peacekeeping in Brooklyn this weekend. So, Mr. Bays.
Following the Defence Pact signed by the UK, US and Australia, there is a very angry reaction from France, as you've seen. There's also an angry reaction from China. This is increasing tension. Does the Secretary General have any response to this?
I mean, we've seen these... Sorry? You actually want to hear what I say? Okay. We are aware of these reports. I think for us, we would just stress the importance of dialogue to resolving regional tensions and the maintenance of peaceful and prosperous Asia-Pacific region.
And then one you might like, there is a new polling by the Pew Research Centre, which says that many people globally see the UN in a positive light. And particularly the figures have gone up in some countries, I believe Italy and Japan more than anywhere else. And also the UN's handling of the climate crisis. Also, people are more favourable this year than they were last year. So the Secretary General got any reaction, and can he attribute why the UN is seen more favourably potentially?
Well, obviously these are good numbers to be had. We're happy to see them. What we think, it really reflects, I think, an understanding by population across the world that the challenges we face, COVID and climate change to just name two, will only be solved through multilateral solutions. And that has been the Secretary General's message from the start. It is his message in the Common Agenda. And just from what I've said today, it is clearly his message on climate change. Okay. Edie, and then Jennifer, if that is you. Yes, okay. Oh, sorry. Dulcie, sorry, and then Jennifer, who had Edie in my head. Okay, Dulcie, please go ahead.
Okay, Jennifer, you can go ahead if you want.
No, go ahead, Dulcie. Dulcie, go ahead.
Okay, just two quick questions. John Kerry, is he confirmed for the Monday Climate Crisis Roundtable attending?
It's my understanding, but I would check with the U.S. I don't know if the ambassador addressed that in her press conference, but
She didn't say.
I would check with the U.S. We will put out probably the final list on likely on Sunday, because names and levels are fluctuating.
And you'll indicate who's actually physically here versus virtual?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then does the Secretary General have a meeting planned with President Biden on September 21st?
I think that bilateral will likely happen on Monday.
With Biden?
With Biden, yeah, with Biden, yeah.
But he's not supposed to be here on Monday.
Well,
That's what Linda Thomas Greenfield said. He's coming for one day, and then it's 21st.
Well, I think what she was. I don't want to interpret her remarks, but I think it refers to his physical presence in the UN. The Secretary General may see him outside of the UN.
Okay, on the 20th?
Yes, ma'am.
Physically?
They will physically see each other, yes,
In New York City?
in New York City.
Okay, so Biden will be here on Monday. I mean,
I can only speak to my half of this equation. So
Okay, but-
you may want to get the confirmation of the other half of the equation from the U.S. mission.
well, you just said they're going to meet physically in New York on Monday,
Yes,
the 20th.
I said what I
Thank
said.
you.
Exactly. Ms. Peltz.
Thank you. Forgive me if I missed this, I was a little late, but is there any update on the vaccination requirement situation?
Yes, that has been an interesting story. Just to repeat what we've been saying, so for the UN staff, first of all, there will be a reduced footprint of UN staff in the building to only those who physically need to be here. All of the staff that is public-facing, whether dealing with journalists, diplomats, or others, are mandated to be vaccinated. As for the delegates, I think you may have seen the letter from the President of the General Assembly, which extends the honor system, which had been in place during the last session. Benno.
Thank you. That reminded me actually of a question I had when I went to the cafe. It says you can just do indoor dining there when you're fully vaccinated and you have to show proof. I wanted to ask the restaurant, which might open downstairs again over the Anga, will that have the same requirements?
Yes, so you will need to sit down. You will need to show proof of vaccination, right? If you want to take food out, you do not need to show proof of vaccination. It sort of mirrors the rules in place in New York City. Those rules will not apply to the North Delegates Lounge.
And is there any other part of the UN where that will be also the case?
No, that has to do with the dining facilities. Okay. Mr. Gladstone.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, my least favorite topic here. What you just said about vaccination requirements, has the issue with New York City been resolved over access to the General Assembly?
Well, resolve is a big word.
It feels like a yes or no answer.
No, I listen, so many things should be yes or no answers that are not yes or no answers in this building. We have put in, through the decision by the President of the General Assembly, we've put in place the honor system. The member states have put in place the honor system, which existed last year. We very much hope that this solution is acceptable to all within the confines of everyone's responsibilities and status. Abdel.
Second question.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
This is an Afghanistan question. Our New York Times colleagues in Kabul today saw the building that had been occupied by the women's ministry has been taken over by a new Taliban ministry, Ministry of Invitation and Guidance. Is the UN aware of this change? And do you have a comment about this?
I mean, I can't speak to my colleagues on the ground. I don't know if they're aware of this specific situation. Obviously, we have an ongoing discussion with the Taliban, but there are some recent developments that are worrying. But we're continuing our dialogue and our advocacy for women's rights, for girls' rights in the sphere of work and education especially.
And just one quick follow-up. Are you getting any indication that the women's ministry has been disbanded?
I personally here do not have that information.
Thank you.
Sorry, Abdelhamid, and then Stefano, and then Michael.
Thank you, Stéphane. In the city of Aden in South Yemen, riots have been raging for the last 4 or 5 days, protesting high standard of living and bad services. Are you aware of these riots, and do you have any comment on that?
I have not seen that, but I will look into it. Stefano. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
My second question, if I may.
Yeah.
Yesterday, about 270 settlers had invaded the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Are you aware of this also?
Look, our position on the Al-Aqsa Mosque and all the holy sites in Jerusalem that belong to all the religions remains the same, that there should be no change in the status quo, and there should be respect for the status quo. Okay, I will go to Stefano.
Thank you, Stéphane. About the new crisis of migrants between United States and Texas, United States and Mexico, with actually also with that wave of migrants coming from Haiti. Is the Secretary General worried? And overall, what the Secretary General thinks about the migrant policy, if you want, of the Biden administration so far?
Look, I think we have always expressed our concern at the situation of the migrants who have been, to kind of say, who've been forced to remain in often very dangerous conditions in northern Mexico. It's incumbent on all nations involved to treat people humanely and with respect, and to respect their obligations under various international law instruments. Okay, let me go.
I'm sorry, can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just? And then on another issue. Did the Secretary General speak with Mayor de Blasio about the issue about vaccination and so on? I mean, did they have in the last few days any?
They spoke. They spoke in the last few weeks. Okay.
This issue.
Yeah, and others.
About this issue?
Yeah, this issue and others. Let me go to Michael and Elena, and then we'll go back to the room. Michael Ignatiu?
Yes, Stéphane, you hear me?
Yes, perfectly, and I can even see you, Michael. Nice to see you.
Yes. Stéphane, the president of Cyprus, said yesterday that he will have in New York next week a trilateral meeting with the Secretary General and Mr. Tadar to look for ways to restart the negotiations on Cyprus. Can you confirm, please?
What I can tell you that the Secretary General and the Cypriot leaders will have an informal lunch this month.
Only this, nothing else. What day? Can you tell us the
So
date?
when we have more confirmation on the date, I will let you know, but it will take place this month.
Thank you very much.
Let's go to Elena, then we'll go to Edie, and then we'll go back to the screen.
Hi, thank you. About Mozambique, what's the assessment of the Secretary General about the situation in Cabo Delgado, now that the Rwandese and the Southern African Development Community have been able to help stop the insurgency, which had lasted for years before? Is there any comment about that? And are the different UN agencies working in the field, are they being benefited from the Rwandan presence?
Our humanitarian work continues. We're obviously, and our biggest concern remains the humanitarian issue. The people who have been displaced, who need to be cared for, the host populations that are hosting them. So our focus right now remains on the humanitarian end. Edie?
Any comment about the military?
No, not at this point. Edie, and then we'll go to Carrie on the screen. Edie?
Thank you, Steph. The Security Council discussed Somalia in any other business today. Is the Secretary General concerned about this growing dispute between the President and the Prime Minister that could impact the holding of elections?
Yes, yes, we continue to be concerned by this ongoing dispute between the President and the Prime Minister. I think we echo what was said on the ground by, in a statement issued by the mission and other international actors, is that I think we call both the President and the Prime Minister to refrain from making public comments that are not helpful, from making personnel appointments that are not helpful. I think the unity of those two, the fact that the Prime Minister and the President need to work together for the benefit of all Somalis. Carrie.
Thanks, Steph. Hi. Just to go back a little feedback on the vaccination at UNGA next week, at this vaccination debate. Can you please define the honor system which is supposed to be in place? Because each time we've seen it in the letter sent back to the PGA last night, and we hear you saying it's going to be the same honor system as last year. But last year there was no vaccination yet anywhere in the world, and there were certainly not 90 leaders announced to come in person.
The honor system.
What's the honor system?
The honor system, as laid out by the PGA, says that by swiping a badge to enter the General Assembly Hall, delegates attest that they are fully vaccinated, that they have not tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 10 days, have no symptoms. That's the honor system, as I understand it, defined by the President of the General Assembly to the delegates. But I think on that part of the deal, you also need to speak to the President of the General Assembly's office. Okay, Carla, and then we'll go to our guest, and then James, who, go ahead, Carla.
Thank you. Stéphane, actually I have two questions, but I received an email from Abyss with La Prensa Latina. She has not yet received her visa to come here, and while during the pandemic there were no flights or traveling, now it's normal. And she said she had contacted Valeria, who has done nothing to help. I forwarded her email to Monica Grayley.
No, I'm fully aware of the case of your colleagues from Prensa Latina. I've been in touch with them, and that is an issue I think that is being raised through the host country committee. I very much hope that they will be given visas to come. I think it's important that all journalists covered under the host country accord be able to be here physically if they were able to do so. Mr. Bays.
Two quick follow-ups. The honour system relies on those coming here to obey the honour system. And we know one delegate, the President of Brazil, has not been vaccinated. Very publicly has said he's not been vaccinated. So if he appears as the first speaker on Tuesday, he has breached the honour system.
I didn't hear a question mark. I don't. You know, your statement is your statement. An honor system is just that.
Okay, and one last one was more a request, really. The climate meeting on Monday is going to be very important. It's behind closed doors. Yeah. Is there any chance that we get some sort of pool spray or something at the top so we can show the meeting?
We are working with our colleagues from UNTV and UN Photo to do exactly that.
Thank you.
And there will also be a chair summary.
Yeah.
And I think someone had asked me about the Secretary General's posture during the bilaterals, and I can confirm to you that he will be masked during all his bilaterals. On that note, I will be happy to relinquish the seat to Jean-Pierre Lacroix. So.